Stop me if you heard this before, but Deshaun Watson apparently has requested a trade again. Why do I say again? Yes, Shannon Sharp had the story earlier today on Undisputed, but further reports have been actually it was a while back where Deshaun Watson's like, I'm out. There's many different issues to it, okay? And I feel like I'm the only show who's pointed out, do you guys know the Bears actually have a better record the last 4 years than the Texans? I'm not trying to say in any way Mitch Trubisky is anywhere near the quarterback of Deshaun Watson. But you do realize that, right? Now, you could, if you're a Deshaun Watson fan, you could easily say, well, that's a perfect example of why he wants out. But it's fascinating to me on how he easily escapes any sort of criticism because, people don't like the idea of Jack Easterby. I don't know Jack Easterby. I don't know anything about him. I know they just hired a GM that everybody in the league respects. Good football guy. And he's done a great job in New England as the right-hand guy to Bill Belichick for 15 years. Like, they've managed the cap. They've managed egos. They've moved on from guys that are a little bit past their prime. And though they haven't always drafted well, especially with skill position players, like the product in the field has been pretty spectacular. And their kind of last work, which led them to a couple Super Bowls, was reworking a defense and making it one of the best defenses in the National Football League without a ton of star power. So I've always believed this. I think it's a joke to say you want to transfer before you meet the new coach. I think it's a joke to say you want to be traded before you meet the new coach. You talk to the new GM. I also think that the owner. Let me let you in on a really poorly kept secret. Owners don't really do anything on a day-to-day basis for the most part. Most players, not exactly down with their owner. The only reason they're down with their owner is the owner writes the check. Hey, man, thanks for that big check. I mean, look, Mark Davis is weirder than weird. Do you think that's going to stop somebody from signing with the Raiders? No. Or staying with the Raiders? No. If he wants to pay me a level commensurate with my talent or slightly above, guess what? I'm staying. If not, I'm going. It's that simple. You play for Gruden. He runs the organization. If you got an issue with Gruden, then you want to move on. So I cannot possibly agree with it. But I also think that the way in which this is coming out also signifies exactly where Houston is. Oh, Deshaun Watson asked to be traded previously. He has to be traded previously. Supposedly the straw that broke the camel's back was they didn't involve him in the GM hiring process. Okay. They didn't involve him or in the coaching hiring process. Okay. They did give a late interview to Eric Bieniemy. I don't know how that went. And no one knows anything about a coach they brought in who has been a part of the Eagles that had a great culture and a part of the Ravens that had a great culture. I think it's something incredibly ironic that I want to be a part of a great culture. We're like, well, we just kind of changed leadership with the GM and the head coach to help change our culture, and you don't even want to meet with them. Like, But the significance of the story coming out first that Deshaun wants to be traded, and then the significance of the story from, I think, Tom Pelissero, which he actually asked to be traded a while back, tells you that the Texans aren't really interested in trading him and don't really care. Because the reality is Deshaun Watson got paid $73 million shortly after signing his new contract. That money was not just for signing the contract. It was for this upcoming season, 2021, and the following season, 2022. He's already been paid for those 3 years. So the idea that the Texans be like, oh, hey, here's a check for $73 million, and you know what? If you'd like to go somewhere else and you don't even want to meet with our coach or gentleman, sure. How can we do that? How can we help you? How can we take a top? And look, I said previously when an argument with Jason McIntyre, I don't know if he's a top 10 guy. Like, he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I don't think he's in the top 5. You sit there, well, look at the yards, and I love Deshaun Watson. I do. But, I mean, that's me arguing yards when they don't win games is the same guy telling me that Dak Prescott's a top 5 guy when he had, in terms of yardage, the number 1 offense in the NFL going back to last year. They didn't beat the good teams. Same thing with Deshaun Watson this year. People contradict themselves with Watson. Well, he doesn't have weapons. Well, somehow he led the league in passing yards. Offense has not been the issue. It was offensive line. They overtraded and overpaid to fix that. And it's a defense which has been depleted by injury, age, and a little bit of dysfunction. And at times, the offense hasn't been great against the start of the year when they played just a murderer's row schedule. But you tell me on one hand he doesn't have the weapons, and then somehow he puts up ridiculous numbers. No one ever said that Bill O'Brien didn't know what he was doing as an offensive coach. It was his inability to run an organization and him trying to kind of patch some of the holes that Rick Smith's left behind with some of his contract decisions. But I also, the same reason I don't believe it's a coincidence that Watson's stuff came out now. I can tell you that there's, let's see all the things that have happened, right? The Deshaun wasn't happy thing was a couple of weeks ago, right? And then it festered, and you started to get the whispers of he really wants to be traded. And then they hired a GM who was Easterby's guy. Then they start interviewing guys and don't interview Bieniemy. Then they interview Bieniemy. And then all of a sudden, hey, did you notice a team that threw their hat into the ring in terms of needing a quarterback yesterday? Okay, so here's the working kind of hypothesis. Remember, hypothesis is not a theory. It hasn't been proven. The hypothesis is Deshaun wants to go to L.A., right, to go to the Rams. Think about it. McVay is a guy who wants a more mobile quarterback. I think he questions the toughness of Jared Goff, and no one has ever questioned the toughness with Deshaun Watson, nor his mobility. He's not what he used to be before the 2 torn ACLs, but he's still a very mobile quarterback and good on the move in terms of throwing and making decisions. So in successive days, the Rams come out and well, we have Jared Goff, and Les Snead said the salary cap, that can all be worked out. The very next day, this Deshaun Watson story, which really is actually an old story, breaks and becomes fodder for sports radio. Who's his agent? The same agent that engineered Jalen Ramsey being moved to the Rams. I was born at night, not last night. It's fairly obvious what they're trying to do. You think Deshaun Watson wants to go play for the Jets? Oh, yeah. Hey, we'll take all 4 of your first-round draft picks the next 2 years. Well, then who is he going to be throwing? You think the personnel's bad in Houston? Wait till you get to the Jets. No. He wants to play in L.A. for the Rams with McVay and with all their dudes. It's a power move from the agent, and it's, And as good as J.J. Watt was in his prime, Aaron Donald's actually better, and Aaron Donald is in his prime, and J.J. Watt's over the hill. None of these things happen by accident, and the timing of it is not even curious. It's painfully obvious for everyone to see. But a strong guess is that Houston is probably sitting there going we don't have to trade anybody for anything. He ain't sitting out. He's showing up to work. Because he already took his salary for the next 2 years. Oops. Deshaun Watson requested a trade again. And when you have to request it a second time, it's not because they didn't hear you. It's because they're not doing anything about it.